Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben. As always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast and part-time dancer Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week, we're answering not one, not two, but three listener-submitted questions. We also have an update on the recent Van Gogh controversy. And finally, anyone that didn't listen to last week's are going to be like, what just happened to Ben there? It's fine. And then finally, we're giving our thoughts on the first two episodes of Paldean Winds. And as always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. And this week, I just want to start. I watched a really good video on YouTube.
Oh, go on then.
Yeah. Well, you'd know about it. You did it, didn't you?
I mean, if you're just gonna like big me up, I'm not gonna help you.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All I will say, if you're a regular listener and you haven't already checked out Conor's YouTube channel, please do so. It's like got some fantastic content, really short form essay style videos. Is that the right way to?
Yeah, I think so. That's the direction we've taken the channel in over the last couple of years.
And it works, and it's absolutely fantastic, and it was good to listen to, obviously, your thoughts on the Loyal 3. And what I love about your content is it feels like it's going off on a tangent, but it's not. It's like, no, we're getting to where the point is, but I need to present the evidence.
Yeah. So
and
I refer to it as tangential learning. And I think I brought this up to you before. It was something I first picked up from Assassin's Creed, which was the idea that, you can have this experience and that experience can, unbeknownst to you, teach you things. And can give you a sort of a stepping stone from which to learn further stuff from. So my favorite example of this is there was a school trip that went out to, I think it was Italy, and they got completely lost. And one of the kids was like, I know exactly where we are. I know exactly where to go because I've played Assassin's Creed. Or it might have been France because they perfectly replicated France.
Unity?
In Unity, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
That was the kind of thing where he was like, look, I know exactly where I am. I know exactly where I'm going. Similar to myself, I played Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, and learned about Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who were two female pirates. And that was like, okay, I'm interested in these two characters now. I'm going to go do my own research, and then found out all this other information about them. And I did a whole script in university on them, and that was a large part of my degree. So I love the idea of video games being this bounce board, wrong word, but this springboard. There you go. There's the word I'm looking for. This springboard into other topics, into educational realms that we just don't notice when we're first playing through them. So yeah, that video is all about kami and Shinto mythology and how xenophobia works and how Japanese media uses metaphysical representations of complex emotions and things, and how you punch them in the face and that's how you deal with it. Good fun, good research hole. I enjoyed making that video.
Fantastic. And plans to do more?
So there's another one recorded. We're actually having to change up the format, which wasn't something we've been playing with for a little while between me and Lewis. He has finally started working a job that is taking up more of his time now. So where it used to be I'd write the scripts, record my audio, edit my audio, and then send it to him. He'd do everything else, all the animation, all the editing, everything was all done on his end, and he had basically carte blanche to do whatever he wanted there. That's no longer feasible, so I have had to go out and invest in a teleprompter so that I can so I can record the videos live. So it's now going to be more me presenting the video.
Love that.
And I think at some point I'd love to stretch into having a little bit more fun with that. Maybe doing, I don't know if I want to go as far as maybe costumes or settings, but I'd love to do something. I'd love to change it up. And
I've got a Misty uniform you can borrow.
If you could, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. And Cynthia as well.
Rawr.
Yeah, I don't know what that says about me having those two outfits. Anyway, that was a tangent, just like King Nido says on YouTube. Just point it out there, but the tangents may just be the best part of the podcast. And if there's two things we can deliver on, it's tangents and, a little bit of back and forth between, yourself and me. Let's jump into one of the first questions that we've had. Again, courtesy of King Nido. I say that different every time. I know. Let's just move on. Great discussion, guys. Cannot wait for next week. A question I have: since now there are so many legendaries and mythicals, is there any Pokemon that you don't think deserves that status, or you don't give that status to in your own headcanon? If you are currently searching, Conor, which I think you frantically are, I'll go through a couple of mine that I have got that I just don't understand why they are legendary. So Heatran is the first one that comes to my head, mainly because I think the way that was introduced was just so... It's there. There's no story. There's nothing behind it. It's literally just there, and it's really disappointing that we've got a Fire and Steel Pokemon with, I think, a rather boring design and a boring introduction. I just don't... when I think of a legendary, it doesn't appeal to me. Another one that I just think got given this legendary status, and I'm hoping you might have an answer as to why, because I don't know if there is an answer, but Kubfu and Urshifu.
I don't... It's not really legendary, in my opinion.
I think it was literally just it. I think it was the only Pokemon that was new that was introduced in the Isle of Armor. Yes, we had the Slowpoke evolutions, but they were based on their forms of Pokemon that have come before. This was a brand new Pokemon, and it felt like, okay, we just need to slap the legendary, like stick it onto these Pokemon. If you want to have an argument of Urshifu could be a legendary, I wouldn't make Kubfu one personally, and that's the same reasoning I've got for a couple that were introduced in Generation 7, Type Null, Cosmog, and Cosmoem. I get why they're legendaries, but I think their final evolutions should be the ones that are classified as legendaries. But Cosmog apparently has one of the worst base stat totals in Pokemon history with a subpar moveset. Like for me, when I think of legendaries, they should be like, they are the kings and queens of their games. They are the most powerful, the most sought after. And it just dilutes that tag a little bit by just going, okay, eventually becomes legendary, so we're going to tag these ones as legendaries as well. And for that reason, I've also...
That one I kind of understand a little bit more, because they do evolve into the kings and queens of that game, if you want to call it that way. They do become Lunala and Solgaleo. So... Nebby being a legendary Pokemon, although initially you're like, how? What? No. I think it makes a lot more sense. I mean, I think there's an even bigger argument as to whether they're legendary Pokemon or Ultra Beasts. I think that is still up for debate, as much as people go, well, no, in the game code, it doesn't say Ultra Beast. I don't really care about the game code. I'm sorry. I know that's realistically the definitive answer. But if we're talking lore-wise, I think they're closer to Ultra Beasts than they are to straight legendary Pokemon. Type Null and Silvally was one I was going to bring up. I don't think it really deserves the legendary status. I know why it is, because it's basically meant to be like the anti-Arceus. It was developed specifically to take out God, or rival God, effectively. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it's said within the game like 3 of them were made.
That's correct. Yes, there's more. There's definitely more than one.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 of them that were made. So that already, we have seen in the past there are multiple legendary Pokemon. There's not just one around, but it dampens that a little bit. Plus, I don't think man-made Pokemon should be given the legendary status. Oh, well, yeah, I've just said that and then realized that Mewtwo exists.
Yeah. To be fair, Mewtwo is one of those where I know it's a legendary, but like it's that line between legendary and mythicals, and also Ultra Beast. Like, yes, Ultra Beast for me should be their own category. If it was just 1 or 2, roll them into the legendary. That's fine. But there are, 8 of them? Maybe more? I don't know how many there is actually off the top of my head. But that's a subcategory of its own. And I think with a lot of these legendaries, we're now getting to the point where in the past it was like, you know, oh, you get 4 or 5 legendaries per generation. But it's now gotten to the point where there's too many of them. It's getting a little bit... there's too many of them, which means that it dilutes the meaning of legendary because, oh, it's a legendary Pokemon. And in lore, it's supposed to be, okay, this is this fantastic, powerful Pokemon that, you know, set the scene in terms of what this region, you know, is about.
They need to have the capability of shaping the world around them. So, for instance, yes. I'm a huge D&D player, and I'm a fan of the lore and things like that. And you have dragons. So, ancient dragons are dragons that have been around forever and ever and ever, and they're one of the most powerful things in the game. They don't just exist; they change the world around them. Like if a ice dragon shows up where it shouldn't, a white dragon shows up where it shouldn't, suddenly blizzards are rolling across the land. Everything changes around them, and that's how legendary Pokemon should feel. So I think Mewtwo kind of stretches that line a little bit because it really did shape Kanto. You know, its connection with Team Rocket, its connection with the gym leaders, Blaine, Cinnabar Island, its connection back to Mew and all that kind of stuff really does. We're never going to see another Mewtwo. I think canonically there is one Mewtwo, regardless how you look at the games. I think canonically, as far as the lore is concerned, there's one Mewtwo. So I think that makes sense. I think Silvalia is closer to Porygon, though. We still have the capability of doing it. We could make it again. We just aren't. So I don't see that one reaching the legendary status. In the same manner, I don't think Deoxys should count.
Okay.
So it's difficult because is Deoxys could be just an alien Pokemon. I know there's a bit within its Pokedex that says it was actually irradiated by a laser. It was a space virus that got irradiated by a laser, and that made it Deoxys. So I guess it could be a one of a kind. I might have talked myself out of that one. Okay, maybe it's just Silvalia in my head. Trying to think of other mythical Pokemon that don't really count for me.
Okay, mythical. So Fiona is one that came to my mind. So Fiona is the one that you breed Manaphy. That's its whole gimmick. Is it's the only Pokemon, the only mythical Pokemon, or mythical or legendary, I think, that you can breed, and he gives a different Pokemon than the parent Pokemon, which is a cool gimmick. But why does that give either of those the legendary status? Because again, it's one of those Pokemon that I feel like was introduced in a really subpar way. And like when I think of legendary Pokemon, they are, like, say, the Pokemon that shaped that game. Like you think to like Kyogre and Groudon and the big role. Like they were responsible for the motivations of 2 organizations. And then you've got Rayquaza coming in, and the side story, the post-game content in Auras as well. You've got these Pokemon that basically shape the region, and then you've got random Pokemon that, yeah, it's a legendary, we're just throwing it in there. And it feels like there needs to be almost mythical, legendary, Ultra Beast to the side of that, and then there needs to be a tier between legendary and pseudo-legendary, which are... You know, actually, some of these legendary, I'd probably just push into pseudo-legendary, where it's, yeah, they got the stats of a legendary, but they're not legendary, so to speak, because they don't shape the world around them.
Yeah, I think some of the later mythicals really, they stopped having any story attached to them, and I don't even think the films really filled that story out further. So Pokemon like Marshadow, Zarude, do nothing for me. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Marshadow is just like, I don't like Ho-Oh. I don't like anyone. I'm going to take the Rainbow Wing and corrupt it. And Zarude just like adopted Tarzan. So I don't get why they're mythical other than they were the gift Pokemon of that game.
Yeah.
So those two definitely.
Yeah, Mythical's lost something. Mythical, I think, is almost something that should be retired as a tag for new Pokemon. Mythical for me are almost the era of, and maybe this is nostalgia, but the era of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's those very early designs where there was a story behind them. You might not always be able to access that story, unfortunately, but it's those things that as a child you remember being told about Mew, and you were like, wait, what's this Mew? Like, and you were able to fill in the blanks, but then it made the story, the mythical, come to life. And the later generations have kind of just lost that and gone, yeah, it's in a movie that most people won't watch, and then we'll give it out as a free distribution code, so there's not even a story in-game for it. And for that reason, I kind of feel like some of these mythicals, and legendaries to some degree, where, yeah, you know, if you don't want to do an event around them and you just want to give them as distribution codes, that's fine. Just don't make them legendary because it's or mythical, because it's starting to dilute that tag, unfortunately.
Well, we have not yet had a Gen 9 mythical.
No.
So whether it turns out to be that Peach Pokemon that people are half aware of, that might be this generation's mythical.
Potentially. I was about to ask the question, like, do you think they're going to just move away from that? But thinking about the Pokemon that got introduced in the post-game, well, the DLC in Sword and Shield were legendary Pokemon.
Yeah.
Zarude was the mythical for Gen 8, wasn't it?
Zarude, yes, it was.
Yes, right, okay. So maybe we will just get a Gen 9 mythical that just...
And that's the thing, Zarude has kind of nothing to do with... I was going to say Galar. No, it is Galar.
It's Galar, yeah. Yeah, but that's the problem. Like, it's just a Pokemon that's thrown in there that you're like, okay, that's nice. So... Like, what's it got to do with like, you think back to, like, the original mythicals, and, like, Mew, while it isn't in the game, it is in the game code, but it's not in the game. Like, it plays... It's
intrinsic to the story of the game.
Exactly. And you look at Generation 2 where, you know, you've got Celebi, and that's probably less of a link, but, you know, you could do that story to go back in time, or was that the remakes that did that?
Was the remake thing? Well, there was an initial Celebi event, I think, in Crystal. I want to say off the top of my head, I might be wrong, it might be in Gold and Silver as well. There was an original Celebi event, but you could only do it in Japan. And then there was the extended event in Heart Gold Soul Silver where you got to go back in time and meet Giovanni and be like, oh yeah, Silver is his son. And then he throws himself off a waterfall.
I didn't know that bit. Who throws himself off the waterfall?
Giovanni throws himself off a waterfall.
Interesting. Any reason in particular?
Because he got defeated by Red so hard that he just like, nah, I'm out.
I'm done. See you later. Right, okay. Then we got Jirachi Jirachi was introduced in a weird way, wasn't it? Wasn't it Pokemon Box?
Yes, I think you could get Jirachi through Pokemon Box. Ranger was Manaphy, wasn't it?
Yes. So that's it. Like, I think that's my issue. I can't believe I'm saying this, because in the past I've harped on about, like, making it difficult to get certain Pokemon because you don't get them in the mainline games. But I think I'd rather have a Pokemon that's quite difficult to get because you need to go out of your way to get it than here's a code.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think maybe should separate the mythicals. The mythicals should be Pokemon that it is a badge of honor to get these. I say badge of honor, basically spend more money. But there are ways to get that. And what you could do is you could roll them out in the later games anyway of, oh, it's available in Gen 9 now, but you need to do it this way, this convoluted way, whether or not it's Pokemon Go or whatever they've got available at the time. But in Gen 10 or Gen 11, it's like, oh no, here's a code. Just have it. Because then you satisfy both parties.
See, I think it's Gen 5 onwards that these things started getting worse. Because as I say, you used to have... Sorry, you had the Celebi event. You had the Deoxys event. There was a Mew event in Gen 3 where you got to go to Faraway Island. These, I think even Latios and Latias you had to have the Eon ticket for and do a little event there. So there was story connected to these Pokemon. It wasn't just, here, have a Pokemon. It was like, here, have a bit of gameplay that you do with a Pokemon at the end of it. Bring that back, please. Please.
Agreed, yeah. Like, honestly, that should be the thing, shouldn't it? Mainline game, bit of free side content to pad it out somewhere between that and the DLC release. Gets you to come back. You enjoy it. Oh, you enjoyed this piece of free DLC. Oh, you can pay for the next piece of DLC. Like, it feels weird that they're not doing that rather than what we get, which is literally the code. I mean, I'm looking at the mythical list now, and basically, after Arceus, I don't know if there was a Victini event. Oh, no, it was the Liberty Pass, wasn't it, for that? But then after that, it just kind of...
There was kind of a Genesect event where you went and spoke to a member of Team Plasma.
Right.
Who was like, hey, this is the Pokemon we made. That was I'm pretty sure that's now. It though.
Yeah, there is something. It doesn't like it says a lot when you're on I'm on Bulbapedia and Mew has a big wall of text, Celebi has a big wall of text, and then as you get down, that wall of text gets slightly less and less as it goes from this is the Pokemon, this is the history, this is how you got it, and it's now just like
Giving away, Pokemon? Giving away.
Yeah, it's really disappointing to the point where like you get right to the bottom. Zeraora has 2 paragraphs. Melton and Melmetal get a lot more because obviously they do, and then Zaru gets I'd argue 1 paragraph. It's a paragraph and a sentence. It's basically 1 paragraph. Like that's disappointing for mythical Pokemon. Like give some mystery around them. Give some of that Pokemon magic. Like flesh out those Pokemon. We don't get that, unfortunately. Is there any other Pokemon that stand out to you before we move on?
No, nothing I can immediately say like, no, that shouldn't count.
Okay. Well, let's move on to another submitted question, courtesy of Tony, who says, and I'm just going to read this out full. It's spooky season, and Ben responded when I mentioned some interactive horror games like Until Dawn, The Quarry, and House of Ashes. So their question is, if you could design an interactive horror game, what Pokemon would you center the theme around, and what would be the mystery, plot, twist? Now, I think I'll just start by touching on what I've said in the past. Like, there is a wealth of horror elements in Pokemon that no one really talks about, or they're kind of like cryptic in terms of like Pokedex entries or things that you see in the anime that you're just kind of asked to like, oh, here's some information about these psychic or ghost or dark type Pokemon. But now just forget about that because of the implications of what that has. And you could quite easily design a horror game based around those typing of Pokemon. And I've mentioned before, like games like Slenderman, like you could have them be so simple in terms of, okay, you're in a forest, go and catch a Pokemon quick because you've got a Gengar after you. Like there is some like really short form horror games that you could do. I think what I would like to see though is some more of those. Yeah, if you're going to flesh it out, look at those Pokedex entries. Like, is it Driftblim or Driftbloom that carries off children? You've got Drowsy that takes them away and stuff like that. And maybe that's the way you do it. Maybe the main character is a child trying to get from point A to point B, and you've got all these Pokemon that are basically trying to abduct you, for lack of a better word. And I think that could lend itself to you can you can. What was the word? Disbelief. Mike, you can tell, but I've got
suspend your disbelief.
That's it. So you can tell I've had a busy day. Suspend your disbelief, and because it's through the lens of a child, they wouldn't do the usual things you'd think of, because adults would in a Pokemon world would probably know how to resolve these things, whereas a child wouldn't. And I think it would be really interesting to do something like that.
Yeah, I think they could quite easily make a horror game where a Malamar had captured you and was basically just torturing you through games and tests and just basically playing Saw with you. Because if you've seen the X and Y series, there's an evil
I've seen
Malamar.
The clip.
Yeah, there's an evil Malamar in that who's just vindictive. And I'd love to see him as just the villain of a game.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I in response to this question, I looked up like what are the most evil Pokemon, and the article I stumbled on had that as number 1. I was like, Malamar. And I was like, okay, why? And it was it was the clip, and I was like, oh, okay, like don't mess with it. Like this is a Pokemon that actually, from what I got from the clip, was like this is a Pokemon that actually wants to hurt humans, which is
it was fully
rare.
on like I'm going to take over the world and I'm going to make every human my puppet and have them fight each other. Oh, it was horrendous. Not okay.
That. I love that. And again, it'd be a way to like flesh out those Pokemon that like we talk about like Drowsy and Hypno and abducting children, but like they've never really had their moment to shine in games. So this would allow you to give some of those, Pokemon that haven't had their chance to shine a way to show them off in a way that kind of proves the Pokedex entry is correct in that, yeah, they're all adorable and cute pocket monsters, but they're not. And there's some implications of what these Pokemon existing would have on the real world, which is probably why we're never going to get anything like this.
No,
because it's too much for Pokemon. But obviously, we can still answer the question and we can dream.
I think you're right. I don't think we're ever going to see this from Game Freak. I think it's too opposed to the style of Pokemon that they're trying to create. My words are hard today. I don't know what's happening.
They very much are. I think if we're ever going to see anything like this, it's going to be fan-made games that will probably get shut down quite quickly. I remember it was something on YouTube where someone did a horror, like mini horror movie based in Pokemon. I'm trying to remember what happened in it. I can't quite remember, but I think they ended up in basically an abandoned factory and were getting followed around by, I think, a Gengar or something, and it was like moving between the shadows. I'll have to see if I can dig it out. This was years ago, but it was absolutely fantastic and was one of the first times that, like, Pokemon, like, how often have you ever been scared playing Pokemon? Probably never. That was one of the first times I was like, oh, this is actually, when your brain kicks into like fight or flight, and you're like, oh, okay, no, I don't like this. I don't want to watch the rest of this. But I powered through because, I'm not scared of the dark or anything. But I must admit, it made me think about, oh, okay, don't like the implications here.
The other way you could do it as well is if you use like the Berserk gene that you get in Generation 2 and is developed into R from Detective Pikachu. You could have a haunted house almost where you are being bombarded by Pokemon who are just off their head. And because all the Pokemon are infected, effectively, you're going like the infected zombie route of Pokemon. You don't really have a way of defending yourself because you've got no Pokemon because they're all infected. So you just gotta run.
Yeah, I like that idea actually, because then it gets away from, like, because typically in horror games you have some horror games typically go down one or two routes. It's either you've got some weapons and you can defend yourself, or a lot of modern horror games are this first person, you can't defend yourself, and it's just like scary beat after scary beat after scary beat. And if Pokemon went down one of the two, it'd probably be that one of you can't fight back, because if we could give you the tools to fight back, like it's not a good loop. But if you could have the Pokemon are after you, run away, and that's all you can really do. Like, and if they catch you, literally the screen just goes black and you fainted or something like that. There's a way that they could potentially do it, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get this from the main company.
Yeah, and the game is very short. It's the idea of like get 3 keys to unlock the basement, which goes into underground tunnels and escape that way. I think that's how you play it. So it's a case of, as you say, there's no way to fight back, because as soon as you can fight back, it's not really a horror game anymore.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, that I don't know if you've ever played them, but that's kind of where Resident Evil went wrong for me. Is it went from horror, scary, I've not got enough ammo, but I need to to get ahead, to, oh, look at me with all my guns and punching rocks. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but then it went back into the horror element.
Yeah, as soon as you could move and shoot at the same time, Resident Evil died.
Yeah, I agree. And while in the newer games you can still do that, it's not broken anymore. It's you can run and shoot, but your accuracy is going to be all over the place, and you've got things coming at the back of you. I love horror. I have a love-hate relationship with horror games. I don't know if you're the same, where I have to really big myself up, and every now and again I'm like, I really want to play a horror game, and then after a bit I'm like, no, I'm kind of done. I did the same.
I can't do him. I can't do him. No, because I become just too invested. I feel everything a lot. So that fear becomes really, really heavy for me. So I just can't play them.
I can understand that. I think the only horror game that I've not played that I started was Resident Evil 7 on VR. So I put on the VR headset, got into the house, and I just took it off. I was like, no, I can't. I'm not putting myself through this. I eventually completed it. I do enjoy a good horror game, and I would enjoy a Pokemon horror game.
That being said, though, I did play Slenderman back in the day. My mate sat me down while I was at uni. He was like, I'm going to turn all the lights off. Here's my laptop. Play this game. And I didn't get it.
You just didn't enjoy it?
I just didn't get it. I was like, oh, okay, I'm dead, I guess. What? You're not scared? I'm like, no, my screen went fuzzy and then I died.
I get that.
What?
Yeah. But it's like horror movies. My brother and his fiance love horror movies. They will go to the cinema to watch horror movies, and I can't. Like, horror games I can do because I feel like I have some semblance of control over the character. Like, while I need to go down that hallway and I need to beat that monster, it's still my decision because I'm choosing to do it. Horror films, though, I'm just like, I wouldn't do that. No. What's this? What's this person doing? No. And because of that, I can't enjoy it. It frustrates me to no end watching horror films. Unfortunately,
see, the last horror film I went to go see in the cinema, I think, got me at a jump scare, and I did a little out loud, and everyone in the cinemas turned around and looked at me. I'm like, it's the point of the film. Yeah. It's literally what it's designed to do. Don't mock me for this.
Exactly. I think if you go to a horror film, you're not like jumping or being scared. Like there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry, like there's something wrong with you. Let's move on to the final question that we've had submitted that comes courtesy of a gym leader JC, again on YouTube. So they've asked, what would be your ideal starter? The type, the animal, the concept, etc. And this got me down the rabbit hole of actually a lot of the starters are some kind of animal. Like I'm using the very loose definition of animal here because I know you've got like frogs and stuff like that aren't technically animals, I don't think. But they've all got that kind of loose concept of, it's a real world thing that is slightly adapted. And I think I want to move away from that. Like most of the games start in either a lab or you've got the professor that's come out of the lab. So you've got that connection there. And I would love to actually see starters that are similar to, like we mentioned earlier, Porygon. Like these are my, man-made created Pokemon, or they are creatures that have learned to adapt with the real world and therefore are fused with technology or something else like that. And that would allow you to do what I think they could have done earlier on in the series with like starters potentially like Porygon or Rotom, like those kind of, they're man-made or they interact with man-made items. So what you could do is just take 3 everyday objects and they've got a theme around Pokemon, and you could then have a similar typing for them, which I'd love to see. Of okay, they're all potentially electric or steel type, but then you've got fire, water, grass. So it's a way to just take that starter mechanic and just tweak it slightly so it's not the same old starter mechanic that we have for most of the games.
Yeah, all right, I see that. Personally, I just love the idea of like having a mythical creature, so something that starts off as a normal animal and then develops into a big mythical creature. So say you get a pony Pokemon, so a water pony. And you're like, what? Why is a pony a water type? Because it then evolves into what's it called? What's the?
I know what you.
The seaweed Pokemon.
Yeah,
not the seaweed Pokemon.
I know what you mean. That seaweed horse.
I want to say Kelpie. Kelpie? No, that's wrong. Yes, no, yes, a Kelpie. Which is like half horse, half mermaid, and like drowns people and stuff. So I'd love to see it. It's just a pony that evolves into a Kelpie. Or you could have a dog that evolved into either a werewolf or like Cerberus. So it just gets more heads as it evolves.
Yes.
Or you got a bird that evolves into like a phoenix or something. You've got a bull Pokemon that turns into a Minotaur.
Yes.
that kind of thing I think would be very, very cool. We kind of, I think they missed it a little bit when they did Rapidash's Galarian form. We were really looking for the Pegasus Pokemon. Really, really looking for the Pegasus Pokemon. I
never even thought about that. Yes.
You know?
Oh, they missed a trick there, didn't they? They really did. Like, I'd argue Rapidash should be the final evolution, but if you're going to do a variant, and they've done this before where the original Pokemon only is a 2-tier evolution and the variant has 3 tiers, yeah, that would have worked for that Pokemon, because like when you think of Rapidash, you don't think, you don't think of a mythical equivalent. It's literally like a unicorn. Like the unicorn is there. You've already got that. You don't need to adapt it further. But the Galarian version, because it's a fairy type and, fairy I associate with like magic and, the Fae and stuff like that, you could have then had that 3rd tier evolution of, and because of that Pokemon's design, the wings would just make them colorful. That's all you need to do, and it'd be like the hair flows into the wings or something else like that. That would you're onto something here, Connor. I like it.
Yeah. One last one. You got a cat that turns into a sphinx. There you go.
Nailed it. There we go. I love how that one I thought would be the longest conversation, and you've solved it. If you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, or by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Let's jump into the first piece of news this week. Following on from, last week we spoke about the Van Gogh Museum issue. So just to give you a quick update, the museum has literally stopped giving out the limited edition Pokemon card for safety and security reasons. And if you've seen the video that's doing the rounds on the internet, as I saw today, you can understand why. It is, as somebody who is a people person but hates crowded areas, this gave me a little bit of anxiety. It is literally loads of people trying to get to a table in the middle of, I imagine, the shop, and all just grabbing whatever they can. Unfortunately.
See, ironically, I'm not a people person. I hate people, and this is why.
I can understand. It's horrible, because you're either one of the people that's crowding forward to try and get the stuff, or you're at the front fighting other people. There's no good element of this, and you're looking at this video, and there's some people that are trying to grab bits of everything, which makes me think, okay, they are legitimately just maybe interested in the collection. But then you get the people that are just, okay, they're all the same thing. I'm just grabbing all of them, which makes me think potentially scalpers. Which goes back to the part of the issue with this, and part of the reason why it's fallen apart, and a small group of people have ruined it for the majority, is that it does seem like it's mainly people that are, I'm going to get this for a price, and I'm going to sell it at an even higher price. And we mentioned before the podcast, there's a packaged version that I've seen that's going for $7,000, and I've seen multiple ones on eBay that are currently at £150, but they're all in various stages of bids. Like, they've got several days left on them, so no doubt they're going to go even higher. I even saw one that had already been graded mint. So it is a major issue. Unfortunately, a statement has been released that says it's down to the actions of a small group of individuals, and it's led us to take the difficult decision to remove the Pikachu card from the museum. However, you can still buy it online if you're in the UK. Can you not? Is it completely gone?
It's gone. Yeah,
gone. There you go. So congratulations, scalpers, for ruining this. I really want the card, but I flat out refuse to pay for it, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm going to say it again. The only thing we can do to combat this is not buy it. Don't buy it. It's not worth that money. You know it's not worth that money. Don't reward this bad behavior. The power is in your hands, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunate is the key word there, because there are already people bidding on these things. Yeah. So there are people that go, I don't care, I want it. Fair enough. Sure, if you want it, it's your money, spend it however you want, but I won't be one of these people, unfortunately. I it's a shame, really, but Oh, wow. Have you got anything else you want to add to this Van Gogh update?
Again, it's just... It doesn't make our community look great, does it?
No, it doesn't, unfortunately.
We kind of joked at the start of this that we blame Jake Paul. Kind of still do. Genuinely. Yeah. And I don't think, YouTubers having an issue with Jake Paul is anything new. But I think that really started the idea of how much money these cards and things could be worth.
So just to like let people that might not know what happened. So Jake Paul basically managed to get some of the older Pokemon cards that were still packaged and opened them live on his channel, which then sent people down the spiral of, oh, these cards are worth a lot of money, therefore I'm going to start buying them, hoping for those rare cards that I can sell on. And what that means is for some people, it's not a hobby, it's not a collection, it is literally, oh, I'm in this for the money to buy, to then sell at a higher cost. But what that ultimately leads to is that, okay, cards sell out faster because the company can't meet up with demand, or what the demand they thought they were going to have is exceeded because people are just buying it, which then leads to, oh, we can't produce enough, therefore there's none in the shops, so people that are selling the cards can inflate the price. So it just creates this inflation spiral of, because people are struggling, the cost goes up, so then Pokemon bring out more cards, which then get bought up because new people are thinking, I need to get these before they go, which then it just keeps pumping up the price.
I said Jake Paul. I meant Logan Paul. The other brother.
The other one.
The other one. I mean, they're both to blame, really. But I think it's Logan Paul for buying a Pokemon card for $5.275 million.
For cardboard. Not even cardboard.
Not even cardboard. Has made people go, cardboard. Wait, these cards are worth how much? Ah, well, this limited edition thing, I must have it now.
Yeah. Which is, like, So I collected Pokemon cards when I was a little boy. I've got the collection up there. For those of you on YouTube, you can probably see the gold cards of the Sword and Shield base set. And I did a couple of the early generations, then stopped, mainly because I started to grow out of Pokemon. And then I think it was just before COVID or during COVID, when I had a load of disposable income, I was like, I'm going to complete the Sword and Shield base set. And I didn't really have an issue getting most of the cards. The only cards that I struggled with are those golden ones because they are so rare, so I had to buy them individually. But they weren't that much money. Like, I got some of them for as low as, I think, £15. They were, like, quite cheap. But now when you look at those prices, they are absolutely ridiculous. And me as a collector, there have been multiple sets where I've got one or two of the card packs and then just thought, it's not worth it, because I know how much money I'm going to end up having to spend to complete a set. And I really do feel like the only two complete sets I'm ever going to have are the original base set and the Sword and Shield base set. And I'm okay with that. Like, I saw the original 151 cards that are now available over here in the UK in my game. And I looked at it and thought, okay, that's like, it's quite cheap. It was like 20 quid for, I think, 5 packs and a folder and some other stuff. But I knew that if I go down that rabbit hole, how much money am I going to sink into completing the set as much as I want to? And unfortunately for me, it's these actions of scalpers and speculators has priced me out of the market. It's a real shame that that's happened, because there is a unique joy you get out. It just, all the right things hit you when you get that Pokemon pack, you turn it over, you move the cards, and then you do them one at a time, and it hits into that nostalgia of doing it as a kid and that reward element that you get from it.
It's almost like it tickles that gambling addiction.
It is. It really does. It really does. And funnily enough, one of the videos, I think we didn't cover it, but we were thinking about it. Yeah, there's a family in the filming the kid opening Pokemon cards on Christmas Day, I think, and it's all the family around, and like this boy pulls, I think it's the
Rainbow VMAX Charizard.
That's the one, and like everyone's freaking out. I think the mum just doesn't care. She's like, oh, okay, like this is a piece of card, and which is, I think the majority of people are in that mindset of, piece of paper. Like, why are you freaking out? But this boy is like in hysterics, in tears, so excited, so happy. Like, there's a joy that comes from this. But there is that fine line, isn't there, between joy and, okay, this is starting to get a little bit, I want to say serious. Addictive is probably the word.
Yeah.
I'm trying to skirt around that word, but
no,
it's
the right word. Again, gambling mechanics are designed to psychologically get you, basically. We have worked these out over years and years and years, and we know how to trick the brain into wanting to have another hit. Gambling is just as addictive as any other drug. And I think, realistically, the way that Pokemon card packs are designed is gambling. That's, as somebody who plays the game, I think they do have ways around it. I think the ability to buy singles is great, even though you can't buy singles directly from Pokemon. You have to buy them from the secondary market, and then there's a cost element in that, which just furthers the gambling addiction because now they're worth money. So you've got that. But, you know, for instance, they do battle decks, which is a case of like, no, these are a deck that is specifically designed to be competitive. You can go out, you spend 30 quid, and you have a deck that's ready to play with. Cool. Great. Keep doing that. As long as you do that, I'm not going to come down too hard on it. But I think as a collector, it's not a great...
Well, Pokemon know what they're doing, because back in the day, the original base set, it was, I can't remember how many cards are in that original base set, but it's like, you know that there's 100 odd to get. It's dead simple. The new base set, the new sets are an absolute nightmare, because it's like, oh, there's 100 Pokemon cards. Okay, fantastic. But there's not actually 100 Pokemon cards, because some of them have the shiny alternative version. So they're exactly the same, except for one's got shiny, one hasn't. Right, okay. The energy cards. Yeah, well, that set actually has shiny energy cards. Right, okay, fantastic. Oh, you've completed your original 150? Okay, well, there's actually 30 cards after that 150 that are, you know, the golden, the rainbow, the full art cards. And it's just an absolute minefield. Like, so Pokemon aren't innocent in all this. Like, they figured out, okay, actually this set that you think is only 150, 100, whatever it might be, is usually like an extra 20, 30, 40% more cards on top of that. If you do want to do a complete set of, okay, I want the normal version and the alternative art. And some cards even have 3 versions where it's got the holo behind the character. Like, so Pokemon are, you know, enabling this situation.
Yeah, of course they are, because it's profitable. And what upsets
exactly.
me the most about it is the Illustrator rares, which are the like full art cards that are completely redesigned. I think are some of the most beautiful artwork we've had of Pokemon ever. Like the newer cards, they're going out of their way to make them so good. And I can't buy it as a bit of artwork. I've got to go buy boxes and boxes and boxes of cards, which you're getting. What annoys me as well is that you get like one rare.
Yes.
You get one reverse holo and one rare. Granted, your reverse holo can also be a rare, but then your rarity scale is massive. It goes from anything from like, oh, it's a fully evolved Pokemon that's actually not very good, to full art Illustrator rare, rainbow art, gold edition, whatever the case may be. So it infuriates me. And I wish it wasn't the case, but if it wasn't that way, then the speculative market wouldn't exist. And if the speculative market wouldn't exist, then they wouldn't make as much money. And if they didn't make as much money, the game wouldn't be as proliferant as it is. That's not a word, is it?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It is now, sure.
Sure.
Sure, yeah.
So I understand why things are the way they are. Doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, completely agree with you there. And I had another point, and I can't remember what the point was now, but it's one of those, it's just a shame because, like, the Pokemon cards, like, that was one of my first memories of Pokemon. Like, I remember playing the games, but for me, I remember going to Toys R Us and like, Mum, can I have a pack? And having to pay, I think, £150, £2, $2.50 maybe, I can't remember, and getting those packs. It was absolutely amazing. It was beautiful. It was magical. And it was before, it was before like a lot of those cards, the reason they're worth the value now is because no one cared about them outside of kids and a handful of adults that were just like, oh, this is fun, this is great. And that's kind of what I want it to be, because like then it isn't ruined by these people that are just, I'm buying these just to bump up the price and sell them on, especially when, like say, the secondhand market. I went to shop with my daughter about a month or two ago, and they had the folder of all the rare cards that were selling, and then next to it they had a box just full of cards. I was like, how much are there? He's like,
no, we just give those away.
Yeah, so literally I just went, okay, well, how many can I have? So I was like, I won't be greedy. Like my daughter got 3, I got 3. So I managed to get some beautiful cards of Togepi and Togetic, which look absolutely gorgeous. But it just goes to show that like a lot of these cards, the value is actually worthless. Like there's no value to them because
again,
they are
that's
just
because you
mass
get
produced.
However many uncommons within every pack. So if you're opening, and I think this is the other thing as well that really winds me up, right? So talking about gambling, I used to work in an arcade. I had to understand gambling law. I had to be qualified in it. Every gambling machine you ever come up to has to give you the odds. They have to legally tell you exactly how likely you are to win a jackpot or for this machine to pay out. We don't get that in Pokemon. They have that information because it's on all the machines. When they're packing the cards, all the cards go into machines and they're like, oh yeah, we should have 1 Charizard EX in here for every 500 cards. I think legally Pokemon should have to release that information. We do technically have it in a roundabout way. There are companies that will go out of their way to be like, okay, we cracked however many boxes. These are the rough odds given what we got. I don't think that's good enough. I think Pokemon and card games in general, if they're going to have this mechanic where, you know, things are randomized, they should have to release this information.
It should be very similar, I think, to, you know, the UK, like cigarette packets where they have that, you know, smoking kills thing on the front. Like on the maybe on the back it is literally just here are the different rarities, and this is the percentage chance of getting them. And funnily enough, that was the thought I was thinking of earlier, because I used to be on the Pokemon TCG Reddit. I was subscribed to them, and they used to do something similar whenever a new set was released. They had a poll and people could then submit, okay, I opened X amount of packs, these are the cards I got. And then after so long, they, you know, the people that were modding that subreddit would then give you the rough odds, and the odds were always terrible. Like the odds of getting these really rare ones were next to none. But the problem with that subreddit, and one of the reasons I don't follow it anymore, and I'm sure it's the same for other social media channels, is that the vast majority of people wouldn't post their card packs that they opened that they got nothing from. They would post, look at this amazing card that I pulled, and it leads you down an echo chamber of, oh wow, like everyone's getting really good odds at the moment, I'm gonna go out and buy a pack. And then you'd open it and go, I got absolutely nothing. And it's the same with like people that bet on the football, for example, the accumulator. Back when I really used to be into football, and you know, you go on Facebook and every Saturday people would be posting, oh, look at what I've won on my accumulator. But you never heard from the people that didn't. And it just reinforces that brain. Like it tricks the part of your brain that goes, oh, I've got really good odds here of winning because everyone else is winning. But you're just seeing the ones that did win. You're not seeing all the ones that didn't. And I'm sure if you know, it ties back into what you said. If you knew the odds, chances are you wouldn't pick up that pack if you were looking for those specific Pokemon.
That's the idea of informed consent. And I think, especially when your market is children, that information needs to be a lot clearer. I'll die on that hill as well. I think they should at least show the odds.
Agreed. Let's move on to Paldean Winds. So episode 2 of Paldean Winds has been released. Turns out I didn't see episode 1 either, so I've gone back and watched both of the first 2 episodes.
Surprisingly long wait time between the episodes.
Was that? What do you know what it is off the top of your head?
At least a month, I think.
Wow.
Well, considering so the guessing game we planned last week, or the guessing game we played,
off that first
it was based off the first one. And we haven't, so you can work out how long it's been. since the last time we played the getting game.
Yes.
Which is,
yes.
I think about a month.
Because funnily enough, when I was watching that episode, I was like, oh, Masquerade. Oh, it's a Titan. And then I clicked in. I was like, oh, this is where Conor pulled those Pokemon from.
Yeah, it was a month ago.
Wow. We'll briefly touch on episode 1. Is that fresh in your mind? Have you watched it back or not?
Not recently, no, but
okay.
I remember it vaguely enough.
Okay. So I think we'll just briefly touch on what it is. I'm not going to do a scene by scene breakdown, but basically it follows O'Hara, who is one of the students at the academy, and 2 others. So we've got Homer and their Quaxley, and I've got it written down. I can't remember how you pronounced it. Alicus? I don't know.
What you're trying to say.
The person with the trainer of the Masquerade. Alicus, there we go. Yeah, Alicus, that's it. And it follows them who have been asked to create a video project by the Academy's director, and it follows O'Hara. It jumps forward and backwards in time, so it's not a chronological order, but O'Hara ends up on the top of the mountain, drops their flute. Arven rocks up. They get attacked by Titan. She plays the flute to calm the Titan, which impresses on Arven. And then once it's calmed down, O'Hara gets back to the academy and goes, "Oh, I get it now." I don't quite know what she got, though. I was a bit lost there.
So she was... From what I got from the story, her dad was really pressuring her, because I think her dad is the composer of the school's band, and she was being pressured into being the best, being first seat, as it were. And words are failing me today. What's it called when your orchestra? There you go, first seat in the orchestra. So, as is often the case with school children, she was feeling the pressure and decided she didn't want to do it anymore. But instead of just not doing it, she decides to go to the top of the mountain to throw her flute off. Which, points for creativity on that one. Yeah. You gotta give him points for effort. But yes, learns that the sound of her flute reminds the Titan of its children. Is that how that works?
I didn't make the link. Honestly, I was just like, oh, okay. Is she just good at the flute? Is it a calming melody? I didn't personally make the link between that and Citadel.
It's something to do with the way the winds blow through the mountains and Titan. That's what calms the Titan down. Fair enough. Really, really odd that's what made you go, actually, maybe the flute isn't a bad thing, because it just saved my life.
Well, it saved Arven's life, definitely. Arven was about to get chomped up.
I love that Arven just shows up out of nowhere in this one as well.
And what I liked about it is he's pre-Scarlet and Violet Arven.
He's still a douche.
Because he's douche, he's grumpy. He walks past it and doesn't even say hello, just gives her the side eye, like, got to deal with you, and then wanders off. And then we see a little bit more of like true Arven when, the Titan attacks and his walls break down. He's just like panicking and trying to flee and everything. But I think that I'm pretty sure there was a line in there that said that they're making the video for the new starter that's coming to the school, which I think is implied to be your character from Scarlet and Violet.
Kind of,
yeah. That's what I took from this. And this, you know what, like. These 2 episodes actually made me realize that I would have liked more of the school aspect in the mainline game, because I don't see the point in having the school as be like the thing that ties it all together, because outside of doing the lessons and the starting hub, you don't really do anything with the school. Like, there's a handful of students you interact with and a couple of the stories tie back into it, but like, I actually really enjoyed that this was... No, it's just 3 students that are at the school. I loved that conversation between them and seeing them have the chemistry with one another and being in the school. I really did enjoy that, and I'm gutted now looking back that we didn't get more of that in the base game of Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah. It's
Oh, wait.
well, you say the base game. We should have got it really in the DLC as well, when we had the perfect opportunity to make friends with 3 randos, and we just don't.
We just don't, because it's such a shame. A couple of the other highlights from this episode that I feel are, we get to see Gimmighoul at the front, who looks like it just has the worst life ever, because it's just wandering through Messagoza, trying to find a coin while it's trying not to get stepped on. And then we get Tinker Tom, which chases down a Corviknight, which is beautiful. Like, the animation is gorgeous, because the Corviknight flies in, you see Tinker Tom, its eyes glow in that typical anime fashion, and it's like starts trying to hunt down this Corviknight, swinging its hammer around. It's absolutely beautiful, and I love it. But there were parts where, like, Messagoza is as empty in this animation as it is in the actual game. Like, literally the stairs, there's nobody on the stairs. It's like, okay, right, fair enough. Which I think is quite a good point, because it brings me into episode 2, where the very start of the YouTube video has the following message. These images, video, some characters, and other elements are not in-game. They are inspired by the game's graphics, characters, and environments, but do not reproduce them. Which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen on a video that has a link to a video game franchise. Like, to the point where, like, I just don't understand why they put it in, because it's almost like, yeah, that's obvious. Like, why are you saying that? And the only thing I can think of,
see that when I watched it.
Did you not? Well, this is the same video that on the YouTube channel is called Breathe In, but the video I watched was #ad UK breathe in. Like, come on. Like, these little things, like, what you doing? But the episode, so this episode focused more on what's the name of the person? I've forgotten. Alicus.
Who I assume has a brother in Blueberry Academy.
Yeah, so my first thought on that, because you don't see their face and you see the purple hair, and I know this isn't the answer. This isn't me like, oh, this is the theory. Like, this is just me being stupid. My first thought was, oh, it's Leon. But then I was like, no, why? Hold on, no, there are more people with purple hair. It's not Leon. I know it's not Leon, okay? But I did, like, even Google, and like, because in my head, I remember Leon having gold at the end of his hair, but he hasn't. I just made that up. So this isn't Leon, but you never see his face, which is, I think, another reason why I went down that rabbit hole of, oh, there's a reveal here. I don't think there is a reveal. I think, like I say, they're just an academy, so they're a student at another academy somewhere. But what we get in this story is Nemona makes an appearance, and the character is lost to Nemona, because, of course, Nemona always wins. And they lash out, hurting Meowscarada's feelings. And you get the hint here that this trainer is probably the second best in this school, or they're up there. They're in the top tier. Like they talk about, well, everyone else has still got their first form evolution starters, but Alicus has actually got a Meowscarada already, because they're determined to win. And this is another one of those episodes where, like, it's nice to see what you don't get in the games for the most part is trainers' different feelings towards battling. So Alicus's brother literally says at the start of the episode, if your Pokemon lost, I wouldn't use it in a fight again.
Yeah, weird,
like,
Paul.
Whoa. Like, wow, okay. And we've seen that kind of attitude before in Silver and Gen 2, that I really don't care about my Pokemon. But then they come around on it, hence why at the end of the game they're able to get, friendship evolutions. But I did like the fact that it gave Alicus the opportunity to, they lash out, but then they turn around and go, actually, you know what? I'm wrong. And Meowscarada turns up for the final fight against Nemona. And we get to see terrestrialization for the first time in the anime. At least for me, it might have already happened in the new anime, but I've not seen that. And it looked like the animation on this is absolutely gorgeous. Like, terrestrialization, because that's not something that must be easy to animate with all the different, like, reflections and colors going on. That must be so intensive to create that. and they could have shied away from it. And yet you get this, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And we get a couple of other things. We don't get confirmation on who wins, but it's Nemona, obviously, because Nemona, you know, in canon has not lost. Like, she's just flat out wipes the floor of everyone. And we
this
also
is
get
definitely pre Scarlet and Violet, because she's using her team that we see her use in the opening scene, because she's got her Tauros.
Yep.
Which I will say as well, the terrestrialization of fighting type has more of a fist in this, whereas I was assumed it was more of a boxing gloves. Whereas you actually get to see the fingers in this, which was odd.
You do, don't you? Yeah, the quality's a little bit better. And I think one of the things that I liked about this is that because they can do in this what they can't do in the game, because the game, unfortunately, because there are so many different types of hats and so many types of Pokemon, like, they don't always look great, because it's kind of like, oh, where do we put it? Whereas that's not a limitation in animation, because you can just go, oh, well, let's just blend it in. So it works really well on both those Pokemon. And I think, like, the fist, I think it's smaller in this than the actual game, but I might be wrong. But it does look a lot better. And the only other highlight from this is, like, Meowscarada basically survives on 1 HP, and Nemona actually says word for word, like, whatever the friendship mechanic, like, Meowscarada toughed it out so you wouldn't feel sad. I'm like, okay, right, so that's okay. Word for word as well, which I did enjoy that. It wasn't something that needed to be there, but it was nice.
It's a nice pull. It's not one I appreciate, but it's a nice pull. Again, it makes more sense in the anime than it does in the games.
Agreed. Yes, I agree with you there. Yeah, it's quite, because like you know, toughing something out and surviving when you've got barely any HP, it's something that has been going on through anime, TV, and other media for so long now, where it's like, now they should be down and out, but the you know friendship and all that stuff keeps them fighting.
I hate the implication that it's like, oh, it didn't want you to be sad. No, it wanted to keep fighting. It's got nothing to do with me. Our bond is great, but it wants to fight. It wants to win this, because it's not about me being sad. It's got to be, it wants to do it as well. Otherwise, I'm really not a nice person. If I'm emotionally torturing my Pokemon as well as physically. Let's not go down that route.
I don't want to fight. Yeah, but I'm sad. Okay.
Oh, well, I guess I'll keep going then.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'll take more hits.
Overall, have you enjoyed these 2 episodes?
Stunning animation. I don't think it's currently on the level of Hisuian Snow, story-wise.
Okay, right.
I don't think it's provided as much for me. I think there was a lot more heartfelt of a story. Even, you know, I think, what was it? Not Galarian Wings. What was the Galar one? Wings something. Anyway, doesn't matter. The Galar spin-off that they did, I think, was better.
Okay.
I'm just not as invested in these characters.
Okay.
I think they've made a strange choice in picking 3 brand new characters and only giving us 1 episode to flesh them out. And for that, it's lacking for me. I think it looks gorgeous. I think Paldea has never been more realized. But again, it's as a representation of the game, I don't think it's great. I don't think it explores enough of the characters that we already have in the game. Obviously, in the first one we got Arvin, in this one we got Nemona. I assume that the next one's going to have Penny in it. I have to assume that's the case, but I don't think they're even fleshed out much. So it doesn't do a lot for me.
I can understand that. I think I enjoyed them. I would be very keen to watch the rest of the episodes. Is it something that, you know, is essential viewing? No, it's not. It's just a nice little bit of here's a little side story that ties in with the mainline games. I think it does get us a little bit closer to having the school as almost a main character, because like it's kind of like when you think about Harry Potter, the castle is a main character because of just the whimsy behind it, and the fact that it has a life of its own, and it's like in every book, and like the school should be not that well realized, but it should feel like, oh, the school has got a character of its own. And I think this helps to take some of the right steps to get us there, but I'd like to see more of that student atmosphere moving forward. But I can admit that I think I would have preferred each of the episodes to focus on people that we already know.
Like, even we could have fleshed out the teachers.
Oh, that's a great idea, actually. Yeah.
You know, we could have seen a student take his particular class and a teacher reach out to them and, you know, have that proper student-teacher relationship where it's like, oh, I'm struggling here. I'll give you a little bit of one-to-one tutoring and teach you something about life as well as about my subject. I think there's a lot they could have done with this. As I say, this isn't bad. For what it is, it's fine. It's enjoyable enough to watch. I just don't think it hits the right spot for me that I want from these spin-off series.
I get that. I understand that. It's one of the things for me, because obviously we used to talk about the what was it, Pokemon Journey series on the podcast, and we used to break down episodes. This scratched that itch because I haven't watched any of the new Pokemon anime. It's been a while, so it really did scratch that itch of, oh, okay, I can just sit back, I can relax, I can enjoy these characters and the motivations and the simplicity of it all.
We're totally missing out, by the way. They're doing some crazy stuff in the anime where they're now introducing like a new side region, which is like a mythical location that's paradise. And there was an ancient adventurer who was like the greatest trainer of all time who found it, and they're hunting it down.
Isn't that all in the game though?
No, not yet. Not yet, anyway.
Not ever. Again, one of the things I love about the anime is they can go, let's flesh this out. Let's just do what the games unfortunately don't do.
And we've already had Terapagos introduced to us in the anime.
There we go. I do want to watch it, but I think I want to get
dubbed.
I think so. Yeah, I think I want it to be dubbed, but then enough of the episodes out where I can have it on like a consistent weekly watch, rather than, okay, I've got to try and find the episode. I've got to find a version that's subbed, and you know, the websites that you have to go to do that aren't always the most reliable. There's a lot of buffering and whatnot. So I think I'd rather wait and then enjoy it without any of those issues. Because like when we used to watch Journeys, when we were watching the episodes on Netflix, it was smooth, it was easy. And then when we had to watch the last couple of episodes on a website, and it constantly kept buffering. Like Leon, you know, the Ash and Leon fight, there's a few times where, like, you know, at the very end where the music kicks in and Pikachu's going for it, and then it's buffering. I'm like, oh, come on. Like,
well, that's also just because your internet sucks.
I did have rubbish internet back then.
It did. We fixed it now.
It did. We fixed it. But I want to really get engrossed in these episodes because, like, other than I've seen a handful of reviews, handful of screen grabs, and then obviously what you've told me about the new series, and it feels like it's going to tick a lot of the boxes that I want it to tick. So I want to go in that and really enjoy that at some point. Should we move on to the guessing game?
I guess so.
Perfect. In front of me, I have 3 Pokemon, each with 3 Pokedex entries, but one of them is a fake entry. And can Conor, after so long of not doing these, start this new round on a high after last episode where I think I got 0, right?
You got 0.
I got 0. Okay, right, so no pressure. This week, we're going to start with Garganical. So, entry number 1. Garganical will rub its fingertips together and sprinkle injured Pokemon with salt. Even severe wounds will promptly heal afterward. Number 2. Many Pokemon gather around Garganical, hoping to lick at its mineral-rich salt. And the final entry. This Pokemon compresses rock salt inside its body and shoots out hardened salt pellets. These have enough force to perforate an iron sheet.
Okay, I don't like the first one. I don't like Solbay Garganical. I just don't see it using it for healing. That feels odd. Putting salt on a wound is just like the worst thing you can do. So I'm going to say it's the first one, knowing full well that you're going to tell me it's the second one.
Okay, so you're half right. It's the first one's a true one. The third one was the fake one.
Oh, okay.
However, I've taken the entry it's an adaptation of its previously evolved form, and I've tweaked it ever so slightly. So the third one is not a real Pokedex entry for Garganical.
Interesting. Okay. Didn't see that one at all. Fair enough.
Okay. Pokemon number 2. Entry number 1 is Pawmot. I was about to start reading it then. I realized you wouldn't have a clue what I'm on about. So, entry number 1 for Pawmot. It charges electricity as it moves. To prevent itself from accidentally unleashing energy when running, it must cover its paw pads with its paws. Entry number 2. This Pokemon...
Sorry. It covers its paw pads with its paws.
It must cover its paw pads with its paws.
What does that mean?
Entry number 2. I didn't know until I saw an image of it, and I was like, that explains it. So, entry number 2. This Pokemon normally is slow to react, but once it enters battle, it will strike down its enemies with lightning-fast movements. And entry number 3. Pawmot's fluffy fur acts as a battery. It can store the same amount of electricity as an electric car.
Third one.
First one, I'm afraid.
It's the first. It was the first one.
What
did you mean?
Look up the Pokedex and look up an image. It's got an Iron Man hole in its hands that it can zap. So it basically zaps out of electricity out of its hands.
Right.
Yeah. So what I was going with that is, because it's charging up electricity, it doesn't accidentally want to discharge it. It has to cover those paw pads with its paws when running, so it's almost on its knuckles as it's running.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why I let you get away with that.
Right. When you called me out, and I was like, I shouldn't have put paw pads and paws in the same thingy. So why did you go for the third one?
Fluffy fur. I didn't feel like fluffy fur was it was too alliterative, and it didn't feel right. And I don't know, as soon as you said I didn't get it either until I looked up the image, I was like, all right, so he's had to do research to figure this one out. All right, fair enough. I'll let it go.
Okay, right.
But yeah, no, I can't believe I let you get away with that, basically.
Yeah. So the final Pokemon is Tauros, but it's the Paldean Aqua breed of it. So, entry number 1. This Pokemon blasts water from holes on the tips of its horns. The high-pressure jets pierce right through Tauros's enemies. Entry number 2. That's entry number 3. Entry number 2. When it targets an enemy, it releases pressurized water from its horns, enabling it to quickly close the distance on its prey. And the final entry, it swims by jetting water from its horns. The most notable characteristic of the Aqua breed is its high body fat, which allows it to float easily.
So, stuck between the first and the second one. I don't know. See, I'm stuck on the second one because I know I like to use prey when I write Pokedex entries.
Yeah,
because that's how you think about animals. It's like, yeah, of course, it evolved it for prey. So I'm going to go with the second one just because it mentions prey.
Congratulations. Okay. That one is, in fact, the fake Pokedex entry. But it's actually really weird that you mentioned that because Garganical, its pre-evolved form, actually has Pokedex entries that mentions prey.
Occasionally they do, but it is it's rarer than you'd think it would be.
Yeah, considering these Pokemon are part of a food chain, it's only every now and again you come across a entry where it references, oh yeah, this Pokemon is part of the food chain and therefore prey, predator, and all that stuff.
Well, so an abysmal 1 of 3.
Yeah, but you can only get better from here. At least it wasn't 0. Actually, no, I
can get worse. You can get 0.
Yeah. Conor, what have you got coming up at the moment?
I don't think it's going to be out soon. We're working on it at the moment, but it is a video debunking the old theory of the Kanto War.
Oh,
well and truly,
okay.
Like,
wow,
putting a stamp on it, saying no, it's not right. There was never ever a war in Kanto, and I can prove it.
Wow. Okay. So what I love about that is, like, literally, it's Lieutenant Sturge. It says, "I fought in the war," you know,
and he did fight in a war.
In a war, yes. That's
but it was never anything to do with Kanto.
Right. Okay. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, he's in Kanto. He references a war. Therefore, you put 2 and 2 together. But as we know, that doesn't always equal the right numbers. So
yeah,
it's
based off of, similar to the last video. It's looking at Japanese culture and why things that were put into the game were so obvious to those in Japan. We have misinterpreted them.
Fantastic. Okay, looking forward to that when it comes out. What am I working on? I'm currently just doing my series with British, where we're doing Pokemon Infinite Fusion. If you haven't already, please do check it out. It is just, if you see the thumbnails,
they're great. They are fantastic. I saw the Lopunny slacking one.
Slacking one.
Like, oh my god, no.
It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, the game really does provide some absolutely hilarious moments where your opponent throws out a fusion and you just take a moment to go, wow, what is this monstrosity that I'm facing now? And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? As always, links down below to watch our YouTube channels, to submit a question. And of course, as always, before you go, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, because it really helps out. And leave us a question, please. Connor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget, or on Twitter at CapFidget.
Ben, you can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. As for the Goldenrod, nope, yep. You can find it. Yeah, whatever. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya!